swing for the cheap seats, and like with the baseball bat, it's gross motor skills, and you just got like a shotgun, you just got to get kind of close. You know what I mean? If I live in the boonies, something else other than the city, I mean, cops going to be there in 3 minutes. So, and really, how many times do you have a home invasion robbery that's not dealing with some type of follow home casino or some type of drug deal? I mean, if you want my TV, I'll go for it. I mean, it's useful. I always wondered. That actually is the Asian issue.
You guys. Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Everybody good? Good?
Yeah, I just thought maybe the proper order. She'd be after you and the Attorney General, so hopefully she's rolling in.
I do hear that. Testing, testing, testing. Test, test, test. Good.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Dr. Rebecca LeBeau with Porzio Governmental Affairs. We represent the Brady campaign against gun violence, and we're very happy on behalf of the Attorney General and Senate Majority Leader and the Brady campaign against gun violence. We're very happy to welcome you here to the Newark Police Department's firing range for the live microstamping demonstration. Before I get started, I just wanted to recognize some individuals from the state police that have been very helpful, including Major Joe Brennan and Captain Larry Williams, and also Lieutenant William Haspel. I think some of our legislators are in attendance. I wanted to recognize Senator Nellie Poe, Assembly Members Siddiq Jaffer, Assemblymember William Sampson, and also Acting Prosecutor Ted Stevens. So, as I mentioned, we represent the Brady campaign against gun violence in New Jersey, and as a historian, I believe it's really meaningful to share that the Brady organization was formed after Jim Brady, President Ronald Reagan's press secretary, was shot in the head and permanently disabled during the presidential assassination attempt on March 30th, 1981. Jim Brady, together with his wife Sarah, became pioneers for gun violence prevention. I am pleased to introduce Christian Haney. He's Vice President of Policy for Brady, and he will speak to the importance of microstamping technology writ large and really how this technology is key for crime solving. Christian?
Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much. We are thrilled to be here today to speak in support of and to showcase technology that we know can have a dramatic impact in being able to our ability to solve crime and to really tackle gun violence at large. My name is Christian Haney. I'm the Vice President of Policy for Brady, and I'm thrilled to look out at this crowd of so many incredible stakeholders, so many incredible leaders that have been doing this work for decades. And what we're talking about here is technology that has been poised to assist our ability to solve crime for more than a decade. And the only obstacle to this technology becoming in practical and regular use has been the gun industry. We're going to showcase today exactly how we know this can improve our ability to be able to solve crime, to be able to lean in on innovative technologies, and once again, to showcase New Jersey as a leader in the fight to prevent gun violence. We are in a moment in history that is critical. We are hearing our leaders across the country, regardless of party, regardless of affiliation or background, coming together to try to solve this crisis. And frankly, we know that we're headed into summertime, where violence has been raging on this past year. In 2020, we saw a 25-year high in gun homicide, and it's only getting worse every day. We have got to take proactive action to save lives and prevent this public health epidemic from continuing to grow with public health solutions like the ones we're talking about right here today. So I am thrilled to get out of the way of a lot of people who are much more important than me. But I will tell you that I am a survivor of gun violence. My parents were shot in 2005. It has been more than 17 years since I have had the ability to hear my mom's laugh. There are too many Americans experiencing the pain and trauma that I experienced that day, that my family experiences every day, and that too many Americans needlessly and senselessly experience every single day in this country. We have the technology, we have the ability, we simply need the courage to put things like this in place so that we can prevent tragedies from happening. So thank you so much for being here today, and we're really looking forward to hearing this group of esteemed speakers.
Thank you, Christian. Acting Attorney General Matt Platkin has been a long-time advocate of gun violence prevention from within the Murphy administration in his role as chief counsel to the governor. As soon as he was nominated to become Attorney General, he emphasized his commitment to combating gun violence. And he underscored his position during his first appearance before the Budget Committee in May, discussing the newly formed Gun Violence Prevention Task Force and the successful gun buyback program, among other initiatives. Attorney General?
Thank you, Dr. LeBeau, for the introduction, and thank you for everyone for being here. Senator Ruiz, thank you for your leadership in coordinating this event and for fighting for gun safety and gun violence prevention efforts in the legislature every day. She's such an incredible champion, both for this city as well as statewide. Mayor, thank you for hosting us in Newark, and in absentia to the director for his leadership in the city. Prosecutor, thank you. And of course, State Police and Newark Police, thank you for everything you do in law enforcement every single day to combat what can only be described as an epidemic, the epidemic of gun violence in our communities. Obviously, we're going through a horrific time in this country with mass shootings, 10 mass shootings a week in America this year. No other country that looks like us on the planet is dealing with numbers like that. And I could rattle off the names, and you all know them: Buffalo, Uvalde, Chattanooga, on and on down the list. But it's that steady drip of gun violence that is affecting our communities every single day. The 9-year-old girl, Sequoia Bacon-Jones, shot and killed in Trenton while playing hide-and-seek in her apartment complex. Robert Quadra shot and killed while unloading groceries for his grandma in Patterson. Every single day, we're seeing the impact of firearms in our communities. And what this technology that we're here today to talk about is going to do is going to allow us to hold those accountable who are pulling triggers in communities, who are using firearms to hurt people, to harm people, to kill people, and causing unimaginable devastation. Look, I recognize Second Amendment rights. Nobody here is denying that. But you don't have a Second Amendment right to shoot someone and get away with it. You don't have a Second Amendment right to obstruct law enforcement investigations. And the intelligence-based prosecutions that we're trying to do, that we're partnering with the great folks in Newark and the prosecutor, state police up and down the state through our statewide gun violence reduction task force, we know who the violent folks are. We know who's pulling the triggers. And this is a tool that's going to help us hold those accountable. And I don't understand how anyone could object to it. I really don't. Why we would say, you know, you have an etching on your car that can match a car to a license plate, but not on a gun, is really, it's beyond me. And I know we're just days or weeks away from another Supreme Court decision in Bruin that's going to could upend centuries-old law in New York for concealed carry. These laws that we do are not just press releases. They save lives. They save lives. And this is a law that's going to save lives. And I'm really excited to see the demonstration today. Governor Cody, who's not here, I thank him for his leadership in sponsoring it. Senator, thank you for coordinating it. And the Department of Law and Public Safety, we stand ready to use this tool as soon as it's available to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney General. Next, Senate Majority Leader Teresa Ruiz will be speaking. I remember talking with her after a Senate Education Committee hearing, and a little girl cut into the conversation, and she said to the senator, "I want to be like you when I grow up." Do you remember that? And that's in part because she gets things done. Senator Ruiz is a real tour de force in the Senate, and not just on education issues, but on myriad policies close to her heart, including child care and gun violence prevention. I want to thank her and her staff for being so instrumental in making sure this demonstration happened today. Senator?
Thank you so much. I don't remember that, but I probably told her to go into a STEM field so she could go get that money first and then commit herself to public service. Good morning, everyone. To the Attorney General, thank you for coming to the greatest city. To my mayor, who has been a stalwart and champion for defending children and protecting families, and that's in every corner, whether it was during the COVID pandemic, talking about gun violence that has been plaguing our communities before it's really been elevated to this public health crisis that people are now understanding that it hits too many homes way too often. To my friend and prosecutor, who I consider an extended member of my family, but quite frankly, I'm calling Prosecutor Stevens way too often these days, and it is not because we're checking in on each other, but it's because of incidences that are happening way too frequently. Thank you for your passion, your commitment, and your lens, which is so clearly unique in understanding that gun violence, while there are many measures that we can do to prevent, that we have to make investment in human capital to be sure that that connection to a gun doesn't happen in the first place, to the state police for being an anchor and protecting all of us in the state of New Jersey, to my Newark Police Department for hosting us here, to our director, deputy director of public safety, and I know the director, Brian O'Hara, cannot be here today. To my colleague, Senator, they mentioned your name earlier, but I didn't see you, Senator Poe from Patterson, who could probably come here and share the same sentiment. It doesn't make any sense to me that I went to school, that I graduated with an English major, and that I can articulate when it's a firework or it's a gunshot. I should not have that skill set. As a matter of fact, most of our children in the city of Newark probably have that skill set. My daughter's only 5, and it does happen. Every now and again, she will ask. And of course, like any parent, we cover it over with saying it's fireworks, because it's a conversation you do not want to have with them at this age, which is a conversation I will have to have sooner probably than the latter. Several weeks ago, I'll tell you, it was the day of the governor's inaugural party. My team met me at my house, and we were all hopped in a car, and literally 15 minutes after we drove off, someone was gunned down at that corner, and we missed it. Several weeks ago, I was at my fundraiser, and all of our cell phones went off, and an incident less than 300 feet from the entrance of my house, 2 young men were gunned down on the block. And I called my husband, and I said, keep her away from the windows, and make sure she's 5, but she's going on 35. And the mayor knows this. I mean, they're like that. Make sure she's not aware of what's happening outside. He said, we just came in. It was 15 minutes where she could have possibly seen this happen in front of her. I cry for her, but I cry for all the kids who have seen this, who walk to school and hear it, who come from a household that has been plagued with it, who have to live with that burden of truth that creates traumatic in their daily lives at such an early age. And then I ask this country, who are we? Why is it such an extraordinary conversation to have when, in fact, if you're just a simple human being, you know, all you want to do is protect children? Yesterday in Judiciary Committee, New Jersey took another step, a bill that I sponsored alongside Senator Poe, to hold the manufacturing company accountable. So when, in fact, an incident happens in the state, Attorney General Platkin can hold everyone accountable. We know when there's loss, the victim is accountable because he's no longer with us. The families that are impacted are accountable because there is stress and there is grief. The community is accountable because we have to deal with it. But the gun manufacturer, another incident, maybe it was their weapon, maybe there wasn't. But now New Jersey, when in fact this law gets signed, will be able to go after the manufacturer so that they understand that they too have a stake in this. And so when I got the press release, my team put together a quote, firearms are the leading factor in children's death in this country. And I called her back and I said, make sure you check that because it's wrong. She said no, and send me the NPR article. How could it be in a first power country where we have the ability, the cognitive sense, the human nature, the spirit, the capacity, that firearms are the #1 factor in children's death? And you still, and I applaud them loud, the bipartisan effort, but it fell way too short. Our federal delegation fell way too short. And where they fall short, New Jersey will step into the fold again. But until this country has the courage to understand that we are not talking about a Second Amendment, we are not talking about an actual piece of equipment, we are not talking about a manufacturer, we're not talking about hunting, we're talking about human capacity and lives. Until we elect people who understand that too many of us are impacted by this on a daily basis, and that what happens to them impacts all of us, what happens to us impacts all of them. Until we bring together folks who are willing to have uncomfortable conversations in those spaces, firearms will be the leading factor in death of children. That is extraordinary to me, and it's unacceptable, not as a public servant, but as a mother. Things are happening in our daily lives. Now you pack up your car and you go food shopping, and I know you second guess, should you bring him along with you to an event? You go running in the park, should I be doing this by myself? And then you drop her off at school, the most sacred of grounds, where you're supposed to be confident and safe, and you're wondering, even during a meeting where I used to silence my phone, I leave the ringer on because you're holding your breath until you pick them back up from school. Who are we in this country? This isn't about the Second Amendment. This is about that 10-year-old who had the courage to testify before Congress about what she needed to do. Spread blood over her body, protect herself, and list the details of what unfolded in Uvalde, Texas that day. In a place where she was asked prior to that day, do you feel safe in school? She would have said yes. And instead, when she was asked during that time frame, she responded, no. Who are we in this country? I'm proud to be part of a state, to have colleagues and a mayor, and people who understand that this is a balance. This is not about taking anyone's right to the Constitution. This is about understanding the Constitution, but this is about understanding and elevating human capital and investment in that, and putting everything else as a secondary measure. So thank you to the Brady Group. I really didn't do anything except to show up and be late to this event, but to everyone who's involved in this, thank you for your courage, for your power, for sharing your personal stories, how it's impacted your family, for having the strength to join us here today. So I look forward to answering questions and witnessing. Yet, if it saves, some people will argue, but it's not going to do enough. To me, if it saves one life, it's totally worth it. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ruiz. And I'd like to acknowledge Senator Nellie Poe just joined us, and the senator recognized the Newark Police Department for all their work. So I mentioned the state police up front, but would like to also thank the police department and Captain Ruane and Sergeant Davis and his colleagues. So thank you. I'd also like to mention Assembly Majority Leader Lou Greenwald and former Governor Senator Dick Cody. We'd like to thank them for sponsoring the microstamping bill. At this time, Mayor Ras Baraka will be speaking. And when the mayor took office, he instituted an Office of Violence Prevention. Last November, he announced the dedication of $19 million towards that end, and he's here to tell us more about his initiatives and this fair city. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I actually just came to support what is happening, and I just want to thank the Brady Group. I want to thank my senator. After that, we could all leave. What Senator Ruiz, the majority leader, said was, just took everything. Senator Poe, thank you. A prosecutor here, Newark Police, State Police, everybody that works every day to try to keep us safe. and secure. If microstamping is going to help us keep criminals off the street, it's going to help us identify guns that are used for bad acts, then this is something that we should be supporting. We all know what's happening around the country. Most people in the world know the kind of crisis that's going on in the United States of America right now, where 10-year-olds can be shot in their classrooms, 9-year-olds have to hide under desks. But something that's not often talked about in a way that it should be talked about, or that is united with that conversation, is the mass killings that happen in our community every single day. The guns that find their way to the streets of Newark, that get in the hands of 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds. This year, even as young as a 10-year-old, we caught with a gun in school. Guns that get in their hands, that are used to take people's lives. For people who barely even know what a gun is, or how to use it, or how to hold it, are using these weapons to take people's lives, to commit other crimes. And it seems that the country is at a standstill, at an impasse, does not have the strength or the ability to do something about what needs to be done. So I applaud this, and I'm here today to support the idea that if we can identify bullets, casings, where they come from, the guns that have been used that put these casings out, the people that held them, the manufacturer that put them on the street, if we can get all of these people and hold them accountable, maybe then if we get the private sector involved, if we force the private sector to begin to behave like they should, like responsible citizens that are part of a large community, then maybe we'll get some traction on this the way we need to get. And at the same time, put more people behind bars who are committing these heinous acts and crimes in our community that we're blaming on mental health. When data tells us that people who have mental health problems are more than likely victims of violence and not perpetrators of violence. And so what it means is that that is not the excuse. The excuse is that we're putting weapons of mass destruction in people's hands who are using them arbitrarily to take people's lives, and we have to do something about it. I support what's happening here today. I look forward to the exhibition, and I pray to God that this is another step, another tool we'll get to use to make our communities and our parents and our families safer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, Congress is in session, and therefore members of the congressional delegation are down in Washington, D.C. and could not be here with us today. But they support microstamping technology, its implementation. And U.S. Senator Bob Menendez, when asked about the Senate's preliminary bipartisan agreement this past weekend, stated that we have an obligation and a responsibility to do what we can to prevent even one more death from gun violence. Now, Rudy Rojas is here, his state director, and he will share with us more of the senator's thoughts. Rudy? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rudy Rojas, and I am the state director for the office of Senator Bob Menendez. It's a pleasure to be here alongside so many of the senator's partners, from Attorney General Platkin to Senate Majority Leader Ruiz, Senator Poe, Mayor Baraka, Essex County Prosecutor Stevens. Before I start my remarks here, the Attorney General Platkin mentioned the young girl from Trenton that was shot down. And that hit me particularly hard because I grew up in Trenton. I went through the public school system. And hearing the speakers talk about the training that students have to go through now, I didn't have to go through that training when I went through public schools, but kids back then, they were trained, they learned that if you see a massive kid just running in the hallway, you don't even ask, you turn away. Because likely it's because somebody was threatening to use a gun. I remember the first time my father heard gunshots outside of our home, and he burst into my room to check on my brother and I, and the fear in his eyes. I didn't really understand it then, but as a father, I understand it now. And I'm sharing this personal experience and talking about the personal experiences that other people have shared right now, because these are personal experiences that the senator understands and takes to heart, especially when he's talking about his advocacy for gun violence. Over the past weeks, the senator has had several opportunities to talk about the need for gun violence prevention. And at every single event, he has repeated the same conviction. Every single mass shooting is a failure in public policy. Guns, particularly military-style assault rifles with high-capacity magazines, have no place in our nation's schools, our churches, or our workplaces. They don't belong in our streets, period. And to those who would use these weapons to slaughter their fellow Americans, as the senator always says, they do not have greater rights than our nation's children, to whom we have a precious obligation to protect. That's where the essential work of the Brady campaign comes in. As one of America's oldest and boldest gun violence prevention groups, the Brady campaign knows that common sense gun reform is not only possible, but vital. And after being on the front lines of this fight for almost 50 years, they know a thing or two about keeping Americans safe. They know that universal background checks work. They know that the assault weapons ban, which Senator Menendez voted for when he was a freshman member of the House, works. And they know, as Senator Menendez knows, that high-capacity magazines are for high-capacity killing, and that you don't need 30, 50, or 100 rounds in a magazine to go hunting. Which brings us to today. I, for one, am very excited to see this microstamping demonstration, and as I understand it, it's going to leave a unique marking like a fingerprint on every round fired by a gun. This is going to be very important for law enforcement, since they're going to be able to use this technology to trace back bullet casings to the firearm that fired them, and also back to the purchaser. And not only will it help victims of gun violence achieve justice, but when you couple this with a state law that mandates this technology in all new semi-automatic guns, now you're taking a real step to making sure we're reducing the amount of lives that are lost to gun violence. So again, thank you to the Brady campaign. Thank you to everyone here for their advocacy for common sense reforms and for this life-saving technology.
Thank you. U.S. Representative Mikey Sherrill is a member of the House Gun Violence Prevention Task Force. Earlier this month, she voted to pass the Protecting Our Kids Act, that's a legislative package that will have life-saving impacts in the fight against gun violence nationwide. She also voted to pass the Federal Extreme Risk Protection Order Act, and that's legislation to keep guns out of the hands of those who pose an extreme risk. Glynis Harvey, her press secretary, is here to speak on her behalf.
Hi, everyone. Like Rebecca said, I'm Glynis Harvey, the Congresswoman's press secretary. She really wishes she could be here today, but she asked me to read the statement on her behalf. Like many of you, I'm not only saddened by the horrible tragedies in Buffalo, Uvalde, Texas, and the countless others in places in the past few weeks and that happen every single day in cities and towns across our nation, but also very angry because I know they were preventable. America is an outlier amongst our peer nations who have put in place policies to keep their citizens safe from this senseless violence. But we don't even have to look beyond our borders to see how gun violence can be prevented with common sense legislation. Mississippi, Louisiana, Wyoming, Missouri, and Alabama have the highest firearm death rates. New York, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Hawaii, and New Jersey have the lowest. The difference? Strong and effective gun violence prevention legislation at the state level. Today's demonstration of microstamping technology is another example of New Jersey's innovative approach to public safety and ensuring justice. In Washington, I am fighting to ensure New Jersey's strong gun safety laws are not undermined by surrounding states' weak ones, and fighting for policies that the vast majority of Americans support, such as background checks, red flag laws, and closing the boyfriend loophole to protect domestic violence survivors. I am heartened to see the negotiators in the Senate have reached an agreement on a framework for legislation that will garner bipartisan support. This package does not include everything the House voted on, but it is still an incredible step forward in the right direction to finally get gun violence prevention legislation signed into law. I want to thank Attorney General Plotkin, Senate Majority Leader Ruiz, and Brady's New Jersey chapter for organizing today's event, and to all the elected officials and leaders here today, Mayor Baraka, Senator Poe, Prosecutor Stevens, the state and local law enforcement and gun safety advocates for your service to our great state. Thank you.
Thank you. I understand Senator Nellie Poe will say a few words. Gun violence still disproportionately impacts Black and brown communities at an alarming rate. As the president of the National Hispanic Caucus of State Legislators, congratulations, Senator, I was sure this issue was important to her, and that was confirmed yesterday for me in the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing when I heard her stalwartly defend the public nuisance bill against testimony that obscured the objectives of the legislation. Senator?
Thank you so very much. I'm going to be quick because I think that the individuals that have spoken before me have certainly not only spoken with their hearts, but provided such compelling testimony. I want to recognize our Majority Leader, Dr. Teresa Ruiz, Senator Ruiz, for her unbelievable championing and step forth efforts in going forward and fighting for this cause. I too stand here in complete total defense of trying to make sure that we do everything within our power to be able to get this going, be given the kind of highlight and profile that it needs. I received a correspondence just last week, and I just want to share some of the statistical information that will really bring to rise some of the issues that we're really trying to address here. So if you would bear with me, let me just real quickly share these thoughts that was provided. And here, according to the report from the New Jersey State Police Gun Violence Archives, from March 20th through November 20th, the city of Paterson, a city that I represent within my legislative district, the city of Paterson reported an 83% increase in firearm deaths and 35% increase in firearm injuries. One of our local newspaper reported that from 2011 and through 2018, the city of Paterson averaged 88 shootings per year. It continues to get worse. In 2020, Paterson encountered its 100th shooting by October. Obviously, if these numbers do not tell us that we truly need to do something and demonstrate the need for real action and the need for intervention and making sure that some of these critical pieces of legislation that is in front of us, in fact, get not only through both houses of the legislature, but absolutely gets to the governor's office so that he can sign it into law, so that we can further protect our New Jersey residents, and every single child, every single family, every single person deserves that type of security and safe going and be able to live the productive life that we all want for everyone. Thank you so very much. Let me just once again acknowledge the incredible work that you are all doing and making sure that we bring our voices to where it really matters to the people of New Jersey so that we can all take appropriate action. Thank you again, and thank you to all.
Thank you, Senator. I understand that Acting Prosecutor Ted Stevens is willing to say a few words, and Prosecutor Stevens is intimately involved in what it takes to solve these crimes that microstamping will be a huge boon for. Prosecutor Stevens, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. LeBeau. Good morning, everyone. It's so important to be here on this important occasion, to be with the many friends that are here today, friends and colleagues who we work with, the pleasure to work with on a regular basis, starting, of course, with our Attorney General Platkin, who provides tremendous leadership for the entire state, the Mayor Baraka, the mayor of the largest and greatest city in the state of New Jersey, so many more law enforcement officials here, my own Chief of Investigators, Mitchell McGuire, and our senators who are here, Senator Poe, who has been a champion for juveniles and children for so many years, as well as Senator Ruiz, who is not only my friend, but someone I have so much respect for. She's here today, despite, I'm sure, being extremely tired since the Puerto Rican Day Parade was over the weekend, so I'm sure that she was getting that in. But she continues to be a stalwart to move forward for everything that happens tremendous here in not only all of New Jersey, but here in Essex County, which is, I say all the time, if it doesn't happen here in Essex County, frankly, it may not happen anywhere in this country. So much has been said already, so I'm not going to be duplicative of anything that's going on. But as the chief law enforcement officer in the largest county, we have a special responsibility to do everything we can to try to stem this scourge of violence which is in our community. Essex County, being one of 21 counties, unfortunately has a dubious distinction of probably handling about 30% of the violent crime that happens here in the state of New Jersey. And that's a distinction which we are not happy about. So we work on a regular basis to do what we can to stem that. So every tool, every theory that we can bring to bear is something we've got to bring to try and to move the dial forward. So much has been said about our children because it really is all about them. The one thing I add is that children, while children in the entirety of the county and from the, as I said before, from the gritty streets of Newark to the tough streets of Roseland makes no difference, that they have a right to be children. And in our urban communities particularly, they have the burden of seeing so much violence at an early age that it tends to become normalized in their life. And nobody here thinks that children should have to bear that kind of responsibility, to have a violence and trauma to become a regular part of their life to the point where they become numb to it, and it negatively affects their entirety of their being. So our obligation is to do whatever we can to save that one life, to bring a perpetrator to justice, to make lives for children better in any way that we can. And if we're not dedicated 100% to that, then we are in the wrong profession. But I'm confident that we've worked so hard with our local, state, and federal partners. We've got a kind of a synergy here in Essex, which I'm told doesn't exist many other places. So collectively, we work together in unison, not with regard to ego or responsibility, but toward a goal of making our community safe. So I want to thank the Brady Foundation for everything they do, Dr. LeBeau for all of your efforts in terms of doing this, and collectively, we can make a difference. And let's continue to work 100%. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Prosecutor. I'd like to bring up Stephen Lindley to the stand. He's the Brady Crime Guns Initiative's City Manager for LA and former head of the California Department of Justice Firearms Division, and he's here to provide some expert information on microstamping technology.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Microstamping technology has been around for quite a while. In California, the law has been in place for over 15 years to require manufacturers to put microstamped firing pins in their firearm. California initially started the microstamping law with requiring that the microstamping is going to be on 2 markings on a casing. Instead of complying with California law, the manufacturers sued and complained. It took us 5 years to implement microstamping in California. 2013 has been the law in California, and they still have not complied. Last legislative session, Brady campaign sponsored legislation to require the manufacturers to only put 1 microstamp on the casing. This is something that they admitted in their lawsuits that they can do, and it was cost effective for them to do it. Yet, 5 years later, they still have not done that. For law enforcement, we've seen shootings skyrocket across our nation. I'm an educator. I teach forensic science in high school, and oftentimes my students ask, well, can't there be something that will tell us where that casing belongs to, what firearm it belongs to? Through ballistics technology, that's possible. It takes time, it's expensive. Microstamping is quick and simple, as you'll see today. California can implement this at any time. If a manufacturer started microstamping technology in one of their firearms, it can be implemented in California the following day. Yet the manufacturers, again, after 15 years now, have declined this technology. It's cheap, it's cost effective, and can be an invaluable source of information and leads for law enforcement in these unsolved crimes. Thank you.
Thank you. So Todd Lazot of TAC Labs is the co-founder of Microstamping Technology, and he's here to say a few words, and then without further ado, we'll discharge the firearm for the live microstamping demonstration. Todd, thank you.
Hello, my name is Todd Lazot. I represent TAC Labs. If you want more information, detailed information, you can go to taclabs.com. I'm the president and CEO of TAC Labs. It's one of many businesses that I have. I'm the co-inventor of microstamping, and I invented it back in 1993. I'm going to share a little bit of information about myself. It's been very impactful. I've heard many of these speeches, and I've thought about the same type of issues. However, I kind of live a sheltered life up in New Hampshire. We don't have that much gun violence. I'm also a conservative, and I'm also a gun owner. But even 30 years ago, I understood the impact of having the ability to generate forensic intelligence that law enforcement could utilize. I figured that even if it worked 50% of the time, that's 100% more information that law enforcement would have in order to identify trafficking routes or sources of illegal firearms that are trafficked all the time. I also looked at it from a perspective of a gun owner and maybe a person who has concerns about their Second Amendment rights, as I do. But I also look at this as just practical. Provide law enforcement the ability in which to target those who traffic firearms illegally. And I do not see a problem with it. So I developed this technology. It's not rocket science. The mechanics, physics behind implementing it within a firearm and embossing into the surfaces of a cartridge are trivially simple. The ability in which to overcome any of the idiosyncrasies of firearms, simple. And the fact is that our technology dovetails into the infrastructure that exists today in the forensic community. It dovetails into programs like with the ATF NIBIN. It integrates into forensic firearm and tool mark analysis. There's nothing really that difficult about this technology. Now today, what I've done is I've brought two firearms that are what I like to call squirrely. They have pin rotation and pin drag and massive oscillations. And the reason I bring these two firearms is that each one of these firearms has more than 8,000 rounds fired on it. And they're still putting nice little microstamps in there. Now, the microstamp consists of 8 digits. Around that microstamp is a gear code, which is a binary code that has the same 8 digits. The idea is that, on average, 4 cartridges are found at a crime scene, and when the firearm is not recovered, those 4 cartridges, when integrated together by a forensic professional, can extract out that code greater than 90% of the time. I have data that shows 99% of the time. But the reality of it is that it's just like a license plate. Our codes over the last 30 years have been developed in order to have certain features in it which can tell the date of manufacture of the firearm. The class characteristics that firearm examiners look at also identify the particular firearm it is. And even a partial code is like a partial license plate. It can still identify the firearm. Today, they're going to demonstrate these two particular firearms, and I'll put them up on the microscope, and everybody can come and take a look and see those markings. And hopefully you enjoy the demonstration, and you can see how simple it actually is. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate everybody who came out today. Thank you.
So Todd Lazot is pulling it up on the microscope, the bullet casings, to show the microstamping. And Christian from Brady is going to give us some closing remarks so that everyone can file past and take a look at the screen.
Yeah, and just as everybody comes around, come look and feel the technology firsthand. Just want to give a sincere thank you to everybody who made today possible, and in particular all our partners in the gun violence prevention space as well. But come on up, come look at the technology, and we'll close in just a moment here.
I'm just
Figure that the character line width is on the order of thickness of the human hair.
We're just going to jump in here since I see it's moving to a question and answer session with Todd Lazot from TAC Labs. We want to let you know that there are experts and partners here to answer your questions, including Nico Bokor from Giffords, Ashley Cannon from Everytown, Josh Horowitz. He's the co-director of the Johns Hopkins Center for Gun Violence Solutions. So we want to give them a heartfelt thank you for their efforts in preventing gun violence. And we want to thank again our host, the Attorney General Matt Plotkin, Majority Leader Todd Ruiz, and again, Brady Campaign for Gun Violence Prevention. Thank you again for being here.
Talk about the microstamping technology and why you think it should be passed in the state of New Jersey.
This technology will help us identify the crime guns, the owners of the guns, who purchase them and transfer them. And really all we're trying to do is, right at the Second Amendment, all we're trying to do is make sure